Greetings from Goshen, Indiana, here at Oxbow Park. I'm actually kind of shooting a long selfie here as I walk around, and wanted to just share with you a little bit of an update from my latest trip and what's happening through the Congo Leadership Coaching Network. Really excited about this last trip and wanted to at least make a rough cut of a video that would introduce you to some of the faces and experiences that I had. I know some of you have been to Congo and you value just seeing some of the imagery of the land and the people, and I know many of you care a lot about Congo that continues to go through a difficult time but is dear to the heart of God and certainly to our hearts as well. So if you can bear with the rough presentation here, I hope it will give you some insight how to join with this work, how to pray, how to carry these people in your hearts that are close to the heart of God, and we want to be walking with them at this time in history and in the life of the church. So yeah, first of all, I want to just say thanks to everyone who took time to pray and lift us up, had us in your hearts over these past weeks. I left September, I think it was around the 21st, for Congo along with two others from Silverwood Mennonite Church. Silverwood Mennonite Church is a congregation here in Goshen, Indiana that became a sister church to the church in Nyanga, an old Mennonite mission station from the early 20s, and a large congregation there that had missionaries that attended Silverwood, and they wanted to go there just to keep the cultural connection with that congregation. They exchange prayer concerns and try to just walk with each other. So sending a delegation, a small delegation, actually two persons, and I happened to be from Silverwood, so I kind of was the third person in that delegation. The three of us left from Goshen around the 21st of September. As you know, there were riots. I guess it was the 19th that the riots happened. We left the 20th and got as far as Washington, D.C., and then got word that it was actually pretty dangerous in Kinshasa, maybe not the right time to come, and we might want to reconsider our plans. So it was a tough call there in Washington, D.C., but we felt led through the counsel of others to continue on to Brussels, and should the door close, flight be canceled, then we would of course not continue. But the flight was on the next morning when we got to Brussels, so off we went. Landed in Kinshasa, to a very quiet city, virtually no traffic whatsoever, and still people were staying very close to home given the riots of the previous 2 days. So that ended up being a bit of a blessing for us in that we managed to, with the help of a taxi, get from the airport to the MPH guest house in short order, something that can take as long as 3 or 4 hours. We got there in good shape, and we're very grateful for God's protection and safety. Following day after arriving in Congo, we immediately went to work. We had a fairly significant task in that we needed to print the syllabi that we would hand out for the seminars, both in Nyanga and in Ilebo. And that always is a challenge because of a variety of things. Is something as simple as the right plugins for these American printers that I had brought over can prove quite a challenge. But anyway, we managed to get printers working, the electrical systems in place, and one computer that was printing to two printers got going on it in the morning and managed to finish it by late afternoon, along with the help of many of the team members. So that was something that came together very wonderfully. And just as we were finishing up, one of the brothers on the team got a call indicating that there would be no extra luggage on our trip. So if we wanted to send these syllabus, which probably weighed in the order of 40 pounds, that we would need to do that on a cargo flight early the next morning. So he managed to take that on and get that on a plane. Was up most of the night trying to make that happen, but by God's grace it did make the flight, and we had a suitcase waiting for us in Chicapa when the rest of us arrived on Saturday. Saturday morning, when we early morning loaded up on Leonard and Antoinette's vehicle, the plan was for Leonard and Antoinette to come with us on this trip, but as it worked out, Leonard had to travel to Benin. That was part of his work to go there for Africa Enterprise, the ministry that he and Antoinette worked for. But Antoinette was willing to continue on with us, which we were really grateful for. And so she and several others and us, we all piled in the vehicle, got to Ndola Airport early morning, and eventually got on a flight, an old Russian puddle hopper as we call them, and flew to Chicapa. They had a meal waiting for us there at the Centennial Center, which was a real blessing, and then we packed the vehicle to head off to Nyanga. So we had a lot going in one day, and getting to Chicapa was just half of the fun. The plan was to take an old church Land Cruiser. It was used for evangelism, along with a couple of motorbikes, one belonging to Mulamba Albert and another one that actually belonged to Birakara Jolie, the vice president of the community. I hopped on the bike with Birakara, and Albert took his wife, and we piled the Jeep, or the Land Cruiser, full of people, and did it a la Congolese style. Had quite a caravan heading off to Nyanga. No more than got out of Chicapa, and had a major breakdown with the front right tire. Worked on that for a while. Of course, you have in Congo, you have a boy chauffeur that accompanies the chauffeur. They are usually very accomplished mechanics. They can fix anything without tools, virtually, and certainly without spare parts. So they managed to hammer something in place that have got us the rest of the way to Nyanga. But it was a long trip to Nyanga, getting there about 8 o'clock at night. The last 13 miles, called the 13, 13 kilometers actually, up to Nyanga from the main road, are quite beastly, and we had to do that at night. I was carrying Birakata on the back of my motorbike, and by the grace of God we never went down, but I tell you, we went through some very long sand pits that left me pretty worn out by the end of the day. Moving along, we were there then the next morning for celebration at the school. They're using the school since the church facility is completely broken down now, and they're trying to repair that. It was a great time of celebration. Of course, they had been looking forward to our arrival, and they had gifts ready to present, and we actually had a gift from Silverwood to present as well. So that was just a rich time. And then Jeremy Shu, the pastor of Silverwood, brought the message that morning. That afternoon we went around visited the reconstruction work on the church, and also just spent time with their leadership team working out details for the seminar that was to follow starting Monday. So there you have it. That was our Sunday. I don't know the dates on this. I can maybe put them on the video afterwards. At any rate, Monday morning we gathered for the start of the seminar. Once again, these seminars are focusing on leadership, and we anticipate 3 seminars over the course of 6 years. The first one is on just transformational leadership, or the foundations of transformation of the leader himself or herself. We invite men and women. We are broadening this to invite leaders of different kinds. So there were some from the hospital, some from the schools, certainly many pastors, but also women who have carried various leadership roles. People came from a variety of churches in a kind of 40 to 50 kilometer area, and many made significant sacrifices to be there. So we were about 100 folks gathered, and we had 4 days of very meaningful interaction. I'm always amazed at how God meets us in these events. I do a good bit of the presenting at this point, but it really is a shared experience with the team. We had with us Kakinda Damien, who's I consider my pastor and the pastor of pastors. Just a real seasoned brother in Christ, deeply devoted. We had Mulamba Albert and his wife Albertine, and they call themselves the twins. They do everything together, including eating all their meals out of the same bowl. And they just see it as their mission in life to do everything together. So it's a really powerful modeling of marriage. And then we had Antoinette Kiswangi, who is the wife of Leonard, some of you have met. And she was the interpreter for Jeremy and Darren. However, she also did a very, very powerful presentation on the role of women in society, women as as bearers of the image of God. And it just was really neat to see her blossom and even do teaching on coaching, which she had received this last summer. Some of you know that she was able to come to the U.S. here for the coach training through Coaching Mission International. Also with us was Robert Irundu. He is the national youth leader, and he was able to come on account of support from Dwight Short to offer soccer clinics for youth during the same time that we were running the seminar. So we enjoyed soccer games, and those were always preceded by times of presenting the gospel, of sharing a vision for being team players in life, not just on the field. And that was a really good experience. Again, I'm glad that it works out for us to do that kind of thing on the side, but it makes it a meaningful experience for the youth as well. I'm trying to think who else was on the team. We had Bercy, Serge Bercy. And Bercy is a small profile lady who has a huge heart and is deeply dedicated to the work of the kingdom. She is now the director of the Institut Biblique, or the Bible Institute in Kalonda. She's just appointed to that role. But she also really values being a part of the team. We certainly value her part. She did a lot of the translating. She's from Nyanga originally, speaks Kipende very well, and it was the first time for her to translate, and you would have never known it because she was just very free and did so very powerfully. That kind of makes up the team. I know I'm not going into the detail of content, but one thing that really stood out both in Nyanga and Ilebo was that we really tried to make more room for the Spirit of God in the teaching. We had our curriculum, but our sense was that God had His curriculum as well, and that we wanted to really pay attention to how the Spirit wanted to bring this all home to hearts and not just to heads. So some very powerful times of just waiting on the Lord and learning to hear and listen together and give voice to our sense of what the Spirit of God was saying. And those turned into very powerful ministry times. The seminar came to an end on Thursday, And then Friday morning we prepared to part ways. There was a part of the team that was going to head back to Kinshasa with Darren and Jeremy, Antoinette and Robert. So the plan was for them to return by MAF to Kinshasa, and the rest of us, that would be primarily Bercy and Albert and Albertine and myself and Kakenda, or Damien Kakenda, we would continue on with the vice president and the chauffeurs to Ilebo for the second part of this seminar experience. So Friday morning we said our goodbyes, and we headed out for Ilebo on a road that, little did we realize, hadn't been traveled in months. We got as far as about 13 kilometers from Nyanga, and we had a major blowout of the radiator, so they took that out on the road and managed somehow to fix it, patch a hole with epoxy glue, which is just amazing. And once again we were on our way, and this time Albert and I were driving the motorbikes, but we did not have passengers for this part of the journey, so that was a blessing. We drove all day and eventually got to Banga, which is again another historic mission station of Africa Mennonite Mission, Mennonite Church. My first time there, we were well received. We had a meal at the pastor's house and picked up a few more passengers. So as you can imagine, the Land Cruiser was very full, and went on until dusk and asked in a village if we could stay there for the night. So us guys were sleeping outside through the night until a massive rainstorm came. However, before the rainstorm came, we were in a deep sleep, and lo and behold, a dove came and landed on Damien's head. So he freaked out, and of course we all freaked out. We thought we were under attack, but it was just a dove that had mistaken his head for a landing place. So anyway, about a half hour after that, we got absolutely inundated by a massive rainstorm, and we hurried inside and slept on a dirt floor the rest of the night. And the next morning, things were well tamped down from the rain, so we headed out. We did buy a couple of bananas on the way in a village, and eventually we got to the edge of the equatorial forest. And we knew that this would be difficult. We had been forewarned that it would be, but you can never underestimate a warning when somebody tells you the road's going to be rough. And sure enough, we hit some really difficult driving, so much so that the car was emptied and people were walking for kilometers. And eventually we got into this deep valley, more of a ravine almost. The road was completely washed out, and we had to kind of make the road or build the road as we went. It involved a lot of digging, carving out the side of the walls of the ravine so that we could find something solid to drive on. But we were just wallowing really in a lot of mud, and eventually it just became too difficult. And so we were royally stuck, and the vehicle was giving us a lot of difficulty, quite frankly. And so we were both trying to fix the vehicle and get through the mud. And finally, Birakara, the vice president, said, I think you guys should just take the women on the bikes and head for Ilebo. So that's what we did. We took off and drove 5 hours, again through perilous roads and villages, but we're able to make it to Ilebo before dark. And actually you have the Kasai River to cross, which is not a small affair. They had from Ilebo gotten word that we were stuck, and they had sent some motorbike drivers who would take our motorbikes. We walked about another 5 kilometers to actually get into the city. They took the motorbikes and headed back into the dark to try to find and pick up the others. The next morning in Ilebo, it was a grand event with our arrival. The church there, the mother church, Kalina, had prepared their service to receive us, and we celebrated through the morning and much of the afternoon, quite frankly. A lot of worship, a lot of choirs, and just a tremendous amount of dancing and celebration. I've never been to Ilebo, and someone pointed out to me on the team, they said, by the way, the people here, the Luba people, love to dance, and so, you know, get used to it. And we did have a great time that Sunday, and it was a nice distraction from all the hardship that we had been through the previous 2 days, although the whole team wasn't even with us yet at that point. Come Monday morning, we got into the seminar, or starting the seminar. Little did we realize that this province, or the pool of people, were coming from as many as 100 kilometers away, actually 200 kilometers away, about 160 miles. One person had traveled almost 200 kilometers on foot, a lady and her daughter. But others with children and or babies had gone great distances, and so the start of the seminar was a bit slow, but again we sensed God's presence, and we were able to get the rest of the syllabi from the vehicle by Monday morning so we could hand those out. This time Mulamba Albert did the translation into Chiluba. Did a great job. It was an adjustment working with a smaller team, smaller than what we had at Nyanga. We really bonded as a group, and the local people and leadership really received us with open arms, and we formed very, very tight bonds with the group there. Once again, the seminar really opened I think all of our hearts in a new way to the Lordship of Jesus. We've put together something that I think is well geared to the context in which we're attempting to speak into. The team has also helped to shape that in a big way and make it contextually appropriate. Leonard has done a lot of the translation work for some of the stuff that either I've developed or others have. And so we're just extremely grateful for seeing a body of material come together that really invites people into a deep experience of transformation. And of course, that's not something you can program. It's really not even something we can do. It's the Spirit of God that has to transform us. But we can be available, and we can certainly create environments where that's conducive to having our hearts changed. And so we would teach some, and then we would demonstrate it through some kind of either a couple within the team, like Albert and his wife. They would demonstrate, husband and wife, learning to hear each other and reflect to each other what they had heard the other person say. At times these moved the demonstrators to tears, and it moved all of us to tears. just because we were talking about real things. You know, this wasn't just kind of a show. It was God dealing with our hearts, and then wanting to do that in a way that invited others into it as well. And I just am so grateful for a team that gets that isn't just interested in pulling off a program, but that really wants to see transformation happen in their own lives, even as they hope to see that shared with others. So we taught, we demonstrated, and then we would often have people divide into small groups or one-on-one, and they would practice the kind of thing that we talked about or do an activation. And that always proved to be a powerful experience, and we would reflect on that together as a group, look at scripture together, and I just was amazed how sometimes we would go for 3 and 4 hours at a time, maybe take a little break here or there, but the interest level was really off the charts. And in spite of the heat, and there was quite a bit of it that goes with hot tin roofs, when you're meeting in a building with very little ventilation. But just there seemed to be a real grace to go deep with God and one another. So that was the Ilebo experience, and I'll stop there. Friday morning, we finished the seminar. The plan was for Damien, Kakenda, and I. We would head off to Kinshasa by plane. There is one plane per week that came into Ilebo, and I was fortunate to get tickets for us, so we took off Friday morning for Kinshasa. The plane did come. We had to pay significant amounts of money to work that all out, but it was worth it. And the others planned to go back to Chikapa by vehicle. It's a long story, actually. Their return, it took 6 days, and they tipped over. They ended up getting stopped by several villages that demanded high prices for them to go through. But as I said, this road was not traveled anymore, so it was easy for pirates to overtake the vehicle. And by the grace of God, they did make it out and make it to Chikapa. A very, very painful experience for them. I wish I could have been with them just to been a part of that instead of flying away from it all. But they did make it back and did all testify to the grace of God. And so we're really grateful that everybody made it home safely, back to their locations. And once I was back in Kinshasa, I just had a day there until it was time to fly out for Goshen, Indiana. So there you have it, my experience in brief, or at some length, as the case may be. I want to say how much it means to me just that people care about what we're doing. They invest time and materially, financially, and prayerfully, spiritually to make this all work together. And it's not a small thing to do. Coordination from this kind of distance is a big challenge. But we really have seen God's hand in it. The team of 9 or so persons that we are deeply invested. They believe in what we're doing and want to see this go forward. So we have another, I think it's 5 or 6 locations to do this first seminar before we begin the second cycle of seminars. And Lord willing, we'll be able to pick that up either here by the end of the year or the beginning of the new year 2017.